Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the March 27th meeting of the Bloomington City Council, members of the community asked the council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. The first commenter was Bloomington resident Bob Arnov, who said he was part of a multi-faith coalition here to speak about the need for a ceasefire.
I'm Bob Arnov, a resident of Bloomington since 1972 and therefore a bona fide Hoosier. Also, I'm Jewish and a member of Congregation Beth Shalom. My identification with Judaism is rooted in the religion's fundamental commitment to tikkun olam, to repairing the world, and to have an abiding commitment to working for social justice and peace in the world. Judaism holds that whoever saves a person also saves the world. In saving the world, there is a fundamental question. If not now, when? The now is the stressing need for citizens around the world with the representative bodies to call for an immediate and enduring ceasefire to the hostilities between Israelis and Palestinians, to halt the catastrophic death and destruction wrought by the warring sides, the need for an immediate, unimpeded, massive humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza, as well as for the exchange of hostages and political prisoners, and the urgent need to take concrete steps toward a just and lasting peace with political determination and statehood for the Palestinian people. These are the principles put forward by a resolution proposed to the Bloomington City Council by a multi-faith coalition of organizations committed to putting an end to the wanton death and destruction occurring in the Palestinian territories and in Israel as well. Many people on the line here are part of that coalition.
Later in the meeting, the council voted to reject an ordinance to establish Lower Cascades Park as a historic district. City Clerk Nicole Bolden introduced the ordinance.
The Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission, after a public hearing February 23, 2024, recommended that the park be designated historic with a rating as contributing. This rating was based upon certain historic and architectural criteria set forth in Bloomington Municipal Code 8.08.010E, entitled Historic District Criteria. Local designation will provide the protection needed to ensure that this property is preserved.
Historic Preservation Program Manager Noah Sandwise presented the staff's recommendation to establish the historic district. Sandwise also shared that the presentation was created by the former program manager Gloria Colombrana.
This district would consist of Lower Cascades Parks, which is a section of Greater Cascade Park at the northern end of town. And the Greater District is currently under review by the State Historic Preservation Office, and pending that review will be sent on to the National Park Service for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. The Historic Preservation Commission finds that the Lower Cascades Park is eligible for local listing on the grounds that it has significant character, interest, or value as part of the development or heritage or cultural characteristics of the city, state, or nation, or is associated with a person who played a significant role in local, state, or national history, and exemplifies the cultural, political, economic, social, and historic heritage of the community. Additionally, the Commission believes that Cascades Park, in particular, features built by the Works Progress Administration in the 1930s, exemplify the built environment in an era of history characterized by distinctive architectural style.
Council member Hopi Strasburg asked if the Parks Department was involved in the decision. Sandwise said that they had been in communication with the Parks Department. Strasburg asked Bloomington Parks and Recreation Operations and Development Division Director Tim Street a series of questions about how they currently maintain the park.
I will ask you, were you aware before this ordinance came before you that those structures were historic, that limestone was special, that build might have any kind of significance?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening.
It was a yes or no question. I don't need, I have a couple
yes.
follow-ups on that. So have you been, in your maintenance and care of that park, kind of paying attention to that concept when you have been working in that area?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So does the Parks Department have some kind of a plan to increase development or to substantially change that might threaten the current kind of status quo of how you have been caring for this property?
We don't currently have any plans that I believe would threaten any of the resources that are listed on there as contributing resources, with the exception of maybe the limestone walls in places along the creek where the creek has been channelized that have been degraded. Those continue to have problems with erosion and climate change and heavy rainfall and will need to be addressed. But currently, no, we take care of the historic resources. We recognize it's our oldest park. It's very important. We manage for the history of the park as well.
Thank you. And I drove down there today, so I'm glad that you mentioned that erosion that continues along that stream bank. If this historical designation was approved, what kind of extra steps would the Parks Department have to go through in order to manage that stream bank erosion, for example?
Sure, and I'll just add that it's not necessarily just the Parks Department. There is a collective effort down there between City of Bloomington Utilities, which is responsible for stormwater, between Public Works, which maintains the road, the Parks Department, which has the property and maintains the assets down there. So certainly we look at that as a city collectively. The recent project, we did replace a lot of the damaged old wall with the limestone wall that you see down there now. That was to make it safer, to allow for climate change, for the creek to have room to flood, things like that. I anticipate there might be some extra coordination with the HPC to ensure, hey, what is the section of wall we're working on? Some of it is original WPA wall. Some of it is replacement wall from the 1970s that looks like the original WPA wall. Some of it is gabion baskets of stone just to hold things in place. Some of it is concrete. So there's a whole mix. So it would just depend on the site.
Councilmember Matt Flaherty said he would not support the ordinance and explained his reasoning.
I also won't be supporting this. I kind of have a handful of concerns. Well, first, I just think it's really not necessary. We've got 90, 85-year-old structures that we've protected just fine all that time. I think it's a value of the city of Bloomington. I think nothing's in danger in terms of the WPA structures. A couple of concerns. One is around accessibility. I heard probably 3 or 4 statements from different staff about the commission generally recognizing other considerations, balancing things, using common sense, looking at the big picture, not an either-or approach. And with all due respect to the HPC, my experience over 4.5 years of council service is actually quite the opposite. Over and over, the HPC comes to us and says, we only look at the history. That's the only thing we look at. Other considerations, equity, transportation access, those aren't things we look at. We look at history only and whether or not this is historically significant. And they say that's the council's job, to weigh and balance these trade-offs, which is true when we're considering designations like we are tonight. But earlier I asked questions about what happens if we grant this designation, and it puts authority exclusively in the hands of the HPC to determine how to balance those interests. And if they did balance those interests in practice, or if I felt that way, I might be more comfortable with it. But again, that's really not my experience. Councilmember Rosenberger just cited a recent example about accessibility, that the HPC showed an inability to balance with accessibility. So in particular, we have a transportation plan that calls for a multi-use path to give safe, high-comfort access to Bloomington High School North and others on the north side. That's an adopted city plan. I take our city goals and plans seriously. I think we need to move to implement them. There have been 3 or 4 different designs considered for Cascades. One of them was a pilot proposal, of course, that closed the road to cars, opening it to everybody else for a period of time. There was an incorrect statement made earlier about that being unpopular. We actually have survey data from that period. 171 people encountered that pilot, took surveys for it. Right around 70% of people said they were in favor of continuing permanent conversion to a non-car path through the middle of a park. Something like Switchyard Park with the Beeline, or Bryan Park with the center of the park path along the creek. So that's the closest thing to data we have actually about this road issue and the access to a multi-use path. There are other options besides road conversion. In any case, none of that's actually of historic significance. Yes, the road's been there a long time. 200 years ago, guess what? There weren't cars on it, it's not the issue, it's the wrong tool. We heard from a variety of folks, including folks who've served on HPC in the past, that the motivation was to keep the road open to cars. And again, it's really just not the right tool for that. And so I guess for all those reasons, I can't support this. Thank you.
The ordinance was defeated by the council by a vote of 3-6. At the Monroe County Board of Commissioners meeting on March 27th, GIS Coordinator John Baton spoke on the ongoing Broadband Challenge survey that county residents have been asked to participate in.
I guess just an update on the Monroe County Broadband Challenge. This went live, I guess, a week and a half ago or something like that. Press release went out. It was covered in the Herald Times. Very little kind of publicizing beyond that, but we have, I posted it on a social media, on Facebook through the Monroe County GIS Facebook page, and then on Reddit through the Monroe County GIS Reddit page as well. We've had 55 survey submissions so far for folks that are eligible challengers. Of those 55, we've been able to submit 2 for challenges as of last week. I'm doing data, what I call a data dump, every Friday, meaning we're basically downloading all the data and then sending that in, and also kind of going through the data and seeing which of the challenges are actually at the threshold, which makes them an eligible challenger. So this coming Friday, it looks like we're gonna have, I'm hoping, around 75 more kind of entries to kind of go through and submit. The issues we've ran into with the responses is individuals doing kind of tests back to back to back on the same day, which invalidates kind of the attempts. You have to do it on sequential days, so either Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, et cetera.
Commissioner Julie Thomas thanked Baton for the work that they've done and for informing the public about the challenge. Thomas explained that the survey will help the county apply for federal funds to improve broadband connectivity.
Everything we could do to get the word out, the better, because this is our one opportunity to access those federal dollars for broadband. And folks may get an email from their provider like I did that said, congratulations, we're increasing your speed at no charge to you, because they've obviously been throttling the speed to my house. So that was kind of interesting when I got that email. I really appreciate your hard work, the work of your colleagues at the GIS office, and Tron and Wright Randolph for giving you the space and the time to do this. It's a short project, and you put out an amazing tutorial video, so anybody that's thinking, what is this, they could follow it, and it's really well done. I can't thank you enough. This is something that I brought to you and said, could you help? And you've just done way more than anybody could have asked. So thank you so much for this. Yeah, so postcards will be going out soon. We do have information distributed around the county at various locations like township offices, et cetera. But if you are somebody the FCC has identified as having internet and having sufficient speed, you will be receiving a postcard very soon with this same information on it. But in the meantime, folks can go to co.monroe.in.us/broadband to see all of the information, the tutorial, the FCC map, anything that they might need. And we only have until April 14th. So time is short, but it's doable. So appreciate your work.
The Monroe County Commissioners will meet again on April 10th. During the Monroe County Council meeting on March 26, the council heard a request to amend the 2024 salary ordinance to include 6 new positions at the county jail. Deputy Sheriff Phil Parker discussed why the sheriff's office is seeking these positions for the jail transition team.
Well, I know there's a whole lot to say here about the transition team, other than I hope that the 7 folks up there are as excited about this as we are. We've come to this place today, and just very quickly, we are already in the process of moving forward with this based on your decision today. we've got applicants in the queue. We already have part-time officers that are trained up that can step in almost immediately, and then we'll just kind of recycle the part-time officers. So whenever we go for throttle up here, we'll move very, very quickly. I just talked to Corey about the office space. We should be up and running with that pretty soon. And then we'll start taking our direction from Corey and from Scott Carnegie from DLZ as to when we're bringing these people on. But again, just to reiterate, it will take us some time, even if we hired, in the next few weeks here, to bring them up to speed on the training. And so we anticipate that intersecting, that the time that they're really, really needed, where the design phase is already started and they're really needed, we'll have these new folks up to speed on their training, and we can start pulling people for that transition team. So I think we're in a pretty good place here.
Councilmember Kate Wilt asked how money generated from local income tax would fund the new positions. Both Councilmember Jeff McKim and Marty Hawk responded, strategizing on methods to fund the jail transition team.
I had a question about the correctional lit and its capacity to fund this as well as what we've already talked about it funding, which I believe were those other positions. And I maybe am behind on discussions because I know I missed a meeting. But this seems to be a pretty full amount of what we're anticipating getting annually with the current lit level. So I guess I don't want to necessarily jump over to item C, but they seem very related to me, unless I've missed something.
Councilor McKim, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't believe that the correction lit with the current rate would support everything we possibly would want in it. So, yeah, I think we're going to have to, not for positions, but when we're talking about the healthcare contract, we'll probably have to fit that in one of the existing jail budgets, either the PS lit or the general fund. That's my belief. I think that this is, yeah, I mean, unless it would just take them forever to to hire these people, and it will. But we don't want it to take forever for them to hire. We want them to move. So that's my belief that we'll have to find somewhere else to, because we haven't put anything in this fund yet. We've just discussed it. So
right.
I mean, like, this is the numbers worked out that it seems like these expenditures fit well in that corrections lit. But at least that's my thought. I don't know if Councilor Hawk has an opinion, but I think we'll have to find somewhere else for the other.
I think what we decided at last meeting when we had this discussion, that in order to make sure that it would pass, it might take 2 readings of the salary ordinance, that we would, on the safe side, go ahead and read it this evening for the first reading. And if we don't all agree, then it would take a second reading to get it. So that's the reason why it's on here for tonight. Okay. Just to make, it was just put that safety net in there.
But I mean, do you agree we'll have to find a different location for the remainder of the health care contract?
Right. I think we're probably going to, we'll have to decide at that point whether we're going to take that out of the general fund or the public safety lit fund.
That's right, yeah.
The council voted to approve the salary ordinance amendment unanimously. The council will continue to finalize these 6 positions for the jail transition in the coming weeks. The Bloomington Board of Public Works met on March 26. During their meeting, the board members discussed putting a continuous abatement on a property at 410 South Highland Street. Rob Council, the neighborhood compliance officer with the Hand Department, detailed his observations of the property.
The property in question has a continuing history. It's been abandoned for a while. The property owner is, in my opinion, heading towards demolition by neglect on the property. We do have an active unsafe order going on that Mike Arnold in our department is also heading. Really, with this abatement, I'm hoping to at least have the lawn trimmed down because it was really bad last year and some of the garbage picked up, and that would allow us to maintain keeping that lawn in a presentable state.
Board member Kyla Cox-Deckard asked if the abatement would focus on litter on the property or overgrown grass. Council responded that the abatement would be for both.
Currently, students seem to be throwing their stuff in this abandoned house, and it's at this point spilling out across the property. So I would like to get that at least cleaned up and then the yard maintained.
The property owner was not at the meeting to make a comment. The board approved the abatement. At the MCCSC School Board meeting on March 26, conversations between the community and board members continued regarding the possibility of corporation-wide redistricting and the consolidation of Childs and Templeton elementary schools. School Board President April Hennessy stated that no one from the board was looking to complete this process for the 2024 school year.
I just want to make that clear that the board has said pretty clearly that there is no action that will happen for 2024 regarding a consolidation or a merger of schools.
The board voted to continue discussing these topics at their next meeting, where members Aaron Cooperman, Brandon Shore, and Ross Grimes volunteered to present options for the merger and redistricting plans. The next meeting will be held on April 23rd at 6 p.m. At the Richland Bean Blossom School Board meeting on Monday, March 25th, Assistant Superintendent Matt Irwin asked the board to approve rate changes to the K-5 before and after school care program, also known as the Latchkey program.
For AM only, it would be $12 more a month. For PM only services, $12 more a month. And if someone were to take advantage of the AM and PM services, it would be $15 more per month. So with that, it's just kind of a slight uptick in that pricing to help kind of ease some of the burden that we've continued to take on over the last 5 years. And we'll just put this on a yearly review like we do some of our other pieces so that we can do that. Two of the other things that we did put in there was that for families that qualify for assistance through free and reduced, meals would also be allowed to have half rate. They pay half the rate. And then also for some families that have 3 or more children, their 3rd or 4th child would be half the price as well. Just to continue to ease that burden on families. We know that we're providing this service to families that's very helpful to them. And so we want to continue to provide that and try to do it responsibly from a business standpoint as well. This is not something that we produce income off of. This is something that we provide purely as a service to the community.
The board approved the rate adjustments, which will take effect at the start of the 2024-2025 school year. The Ellettsville Town Council met on March 25th and discussed amending their fire personnel policy to clarify the town's position on the supervision of relatives. The amendment would clarify who is in charge of employees whose direct relative is their supervisor. Resident Jim Perry suggested that the Town Council amend the ordinance to outlaw or to eliminate nepotism in the fire department outright. He quoted an article about the negative effects of nepotism in the workplace in his argument.
I think nepotism is unhealthy across the organization. You know, I'm looking at some of the language here, and let me know if I get to my 3 minutes, and I will. You know, one of the things that struck me in the language was, this is section 1C. It says, in the event the new member is a relative of the chief, the new member's departmental chain shall run to and end with next officer in the chain of command in the department who is not a relative, and who shall not report to the chief for any matter relating to the new member. Now, the reason that that's problematic, as Pierce summarizes in this article in Industrial and Organizational Psychology, nepotism places loyalty and obligations to one's family over obligations to one's employer. Nepotism is damaging because any claims that family members must take precedence over must take precedence over any organizational requirements.
Fire Chief Kevin Patton responded that nepotism does not pose a large issue in the fire service because the Town Council acts as a checks and balances system.
The way the fire service works, much like the police department, is anytime there's a promotion, things like that, it's a board of officers. It's not a single person. If it pertaining to discipline action or anything, same thing, the board of officers decide it, not just one. And then if it's over a certain level of discipline, it comes to the Board of Public Safety, which is the town council. So I don't see that any of those are a concern.
So we have the town council kind of as the check and balance.
Correct. And with raises, back to promotions, anything like that, there again, the council's the one that has the final say on the raises. It's not a fire chief or another ranking officer within the department.
The council voted to approve the amendment to the fire personnel policy as written. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.